The sun was slowly sinking behind the endless dry plains. Heat still rose from the sand even though the day was nearly over. Mira walked carefully across the uneven ground, her eyes scanning for anything unusual. She was an explorer, and for the last 3 months she had been working with a small team to study an old ruin in the middle of nowhere. The ruin looked like nothing more than broken stone walls and piles of dust at first sight. Many thought it was just an old settlement from hundreds of years ago, but Myra had a feeling it was much older. She had studied ancient history since she was young, and she could tell when something did not belong to any known culture. The shapes of the stones were strange. The carvings were even stranger. They were not like the writings of any people she had read about. Daniel, her close friend and the team's equipment manager, was working near the main wall. He was brushing away sand from a wide stone slab when Mira called out to him. "Come here and look at this," she said, while pointing at a set of carvings on the ground. Daniel walked over and crouched down. The carvings showed long lines and spirals, mixed with shapes that looked like stars and moons. In the center was a symbol that looked like an open hand. "I have never seen anything like this," Daniel said quietly. "It almost feels alive." Mira nodded. The air around the carvings felt cooler than the rest of the ruin. She bent down and pressed her palm gently against the stone. The surface was smooth but not cold like normal stone. She could almost feel a faint vibration beneath her skin. She began brushing away more sand, and as she worked, a narrow crack appeared between 2 stones. The crack was not random. It was straight and even, like a door seam. Daniel fetched a small light and a thin metal rod. He poked the rod into the crack, and some of the dust fell through. They both leaned closer and saw darkness below. "This is not just a wall," Myra whispered. "This is a floor hiding something under it." By the time the sun had fully set, they had cleared enough sand to reveal a small opening. It was just wide enough for a person to slip through. Myra shone her light inside. The beam cut through the darkness and revealed a sloping tunnel leading down. Daniel's voice was full of surprise. "That is not natural stone. Look at those walls." The tunnel walls were not rough like the ruin above. They were made of fitted panels, smooth and shaped with care. In some places, faint marks glowed on the surface as if reacting to the light. Rest of the team gathered, curious about what Mira and Daniel had found. They discussed whether it was safe to go down. The air that drifted up from the tunnel was cool and dry, carrying a faint smell of metal and something older, something they could not name. "We will go down tomorrow morning," Mira decided. "It is too dark now, and we need ropes and proper lights." That night, their camp was unusually quiet. The wind moved softly over the sand, but every so often a low vibration could be felt under their feet, almost like distant thunder. Mira sat by the campfire, her mind turning over questions. Who built the tunnel? Why was it hidden for so long? And why did the carvings seem to speak of the stars? Daniel sat beside her. "Do you think this could be older than all known civilizations?" he asked. "Yes," Mira replied slowly. "Much older." She did not say what she truly thought, that maybe this place was not built by any civilization recorded in human history. Later that night, as most of the team slept, Mira woke to a strange sound. It was a low hum, steady and rhythmic, coming from the direction of the ruins. She rose quietly, wrapped herself in her coat, and walked toward the opening they had found. The stars above were bright, the sky without a single cloud. When she reached the ruins, the hum grew louder. It seemed to be coming from deep below the ground. She knelt near the crack in the floor and held her breath. For a moment, she thought she could hear something else within the hum, like faint patterns, almost like music. She stayed there for several minutes, listening, until the sound slowly faded away. The next morning, Mira told Daniel about what she had heard. He looked troubled. "If there is sound coming from below, And whatever is down there is not completely dead, he said. Mira agreed. It meant that somewhere deep in the ground, something was still working after all this time. The team gathered their equipment. Ropes, lights, cameras, and tools were checked. They tied the ropes to a sturdy column and lowered them into the opening. Mira went first, her boots touching the smooth surface of the tunnel floor. It was cooler here, and the light from her lamp showed details she had not noticed before. The panels on the wall were covered with faint lines, almost like writing, but not in any known language. The marks glowed faintly, responding to her presence. Daniel followed close behind. He ran his hand over the wall and shook his head. This is not stone. This is some kind of metal, but it is not rusted. It is perfect. The tunnel sloped deeper into the ground, the air growing still and heavy. They could see only a few meters ahead. Somewhere far in the darkness, the same low hum echoed again, a reminder that they were walking towards something alive in the deep earth. Myra felt both excitement and unease. She had always dreamed of finding something no one else had seen before, but this felt different. This was not just history. This was a mystery that might change everything they knew about the past. As the tunnel curved, the light caught on something ahead. Mira slowed her steps. There, at the end of the passage, stood a great metal door. It was smooth, seamless, and yet it seemed to pulse faintly, as if it had a heartbeat. Daniel stepped forward and placed his palm on the door. It was warm, almost like the skin of a living creature. Myra looked at him. Do you feel that? He nodded. Yes, whatever is on the other side of this door is not asleep. They stood there in silence, listening to the hum grow louder, both realizing that their journey had only just begun, and that what lay beyond might not only reveal the past, but could also decide the future. The morning sun rose slowly over the dry plains, painting the sand in gold. The air was still cool, but Mira knew it would not stay that way for long. She stood near the opening in the floor of the ruin, watching the ropes sway gently in the breeze. Daniel was checking their gear once again, making sure nothing was left behind. Today, they would go deeper. Yesterday's discovery had only been the beginning. That strange door still stood in Myra's mind, pulsing faintly like something alive. She could not stop wondering what was behind it. The rest of the team gathered. There was Lena, a skilled archaeologist who always carried a small notebook to write her thoughts. There was Omar, the quiet but strong man who handled most of the heavy equipment. And there was Daniel, always close to Mira, ready to take risks if needed. Mira gave a short speech before they began. We are going down slowly and carefully, she sighed. No one moves ahead alone. If anything feels wrong, we stop and come back up. One by one, they lowered themselves into the tunnel. The ropes creaked softly, and their boots landed on the smooth floor. Myra noticed again how strange the walls looked. They were not like stone cut by tools. The surface was perfect and even, as if it had been shaped in one piece. The faint glowing lines seemed to move slightly when touched by their lights, like patterns shifting beneath water. The air was cooler here, almost comfortable. There was no smell of damp earth. Instead, there was a faint metallic scent, clean and dry. They moved slowly forward. Lena stopped often to sketch the patterns on the walls. Omar carried a large light to cast a wide glow, making the tunnel feel less closed in. The hum they had heard yesterday was still there, low and steady, somewhere ahead. After some distance, the tunnel began to slope more steeply. Mira noticed that the walls now had panels that were darker than the rest. When she touched one, it felt warm. She pulled her hand back quickly. Daniel tried pressing on another panel. It made a faint click, and for a moment, the glowing lines brightened as if reacting to his touch. But then they faded again. They kept moving, and soon the passage widened into a small chamber. The ceiling here was higher, and the floor was marked with circles and lines that looked like a map. In the center of the chamber stood a tall pillar. It was smooth and made from the same strange material as the walls, but unlike the walls, it had small openings that glowed with soft blue light. Lena walked around the pillar, studying it. "This looks like some kind of control point," she said. But for what Myra felt drawn to the pillar. She placed her hand on one of the glowing openings. The blue light grew brighter, and a faint sound like rushing wind filled the room. The floor under their feet trembled slightly, and then the hum from deeper below grew louder. Daniel looked around nervously. "I think we just told something that we are here," he said. Myra removed her hand, and the sound faded again, but the hum remained strong. After taking a short rest, they continued down the next passage. This one was narrower, and the walls here were covered in a new type of pattern. These marks looked like shapes of animals, plants, and stars. Some of the shapes were familiar, like birds and trees, but others were unlike anything they had seen. Unearthed. Omar slowed his pace and pointed to one carving that glowed faintly. It showed a tall figure with long arms holding a sphere. Above it was a symbol shaped like a circle within another circle. "Do you think these were the people who built this place?" Omar asked. Myra studied it for a moment. "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe they were showing someone older than themselves." The narrow passage soon opened into a wide hallway. It was so long that their lights could not reach the end. On both sides were tall panels, each showing strange scenes in glowing relief. Some showed cities floating above the ground. Others showed ships moving between stars. But near the end, the panels became darker in tone. They showed tall beings running, their cities burning, and strange shadows following them. Lena touched one of the darker panels. The material was warm, and for a second, the image seemed to shift, almost like it was alive. She stepped back quickly, unsettled. Finally, they reached the end of the hallway, and there it was again. The great metal door they had seen yesterday. In the wider light, it looked even more imposing. It was massive, smooth, and without any visible handle. It gave off a faint glow, as if lit from inside. Myra stepped closer. The hum was loud now, coming directly from beyond the door. She reached out and laid her palm on the surface. The warmth was stronger today, and she could feel a faint pulse, steady and slow. Daniel joined her and ran his fingers along the edge. "It is seamless," he said. "There is no gap, no hinge." "How does it even open?" Lena examined the floor in front of the door. Here she found a small circular plate embedded in the ground. It was covered in dust, but when she brushed it away, it revealed a symbol, the same open hand they had seen in the carvings above. Myra crouched and placed her hand over the symbol. Nothing happened at first. Then, a thin beam of light scanned her palm. The beam widened, rising up her arm and across her body. A faint voice, soft but clear, spoke in a language none of them understood. They stepped back, unsure if they had triggered something dangerous. The beam of light vanished, but the hum shifted into a higher tone. Daniel looked at Myra. "I think it just recognized you." Myra felt her heartbeat quicken. She could not explain why, but she felt a strange connection to this place, as if it had been waiting for her. The door remained closed, but a thin line of light now traced its center. It was as if the door was thinking about opening, slowly awakening after a long sleep. The team stood in silence, their eyes fixed on that glowing line. They all understood that once it opened, there would be no going back. Something moved faintly on the other side, like the shift of great machinery. The air around them grew warmer, the hum steady but louder than before. Myra took a deep breath. "Whatever is behind this door has been here for a very long time," she said. "And it is still alive." They waited, the glowing line growing brighter, until the faint sound of moving metal echoed through the hall. The descent was over. The true discovery was about to begin. The line of light running down the center of the door grew brighter until it was almost white. A deep sound, like the rolling of distant thunder, filled the hallway. The air trembled faintly around them. Mira felt her skin prickle. The heavy metal surface began to split apart from the center, the two halves sliding slowly and smoothly into the walls. There was no grinding or harsh noise, only the steady hum that had guided them here. Beyond the opening lay a vast chamber. The space was so large that their lights could not reach the far walls. The floor was made of the same smooth material as the tunnel, but the surface shimmered faintly, almost as if it was alive. Mira stepped forward. First, her eyes wide. Inside the chamber stood massive statues, each at least twice the height of a human. They were shaped like tall figures with long arms and narrow faces. The detail was so fine that even the folds in their clothing were carved as if they were real. Some statues held spheres, others held long staffs. Between the statues floated strange glass-like orbs, each glowing softly in colors of blue and green. They drifted in slow circles, turning as if they were aware of the visitors. Daniel walked beside Mira, his voice low. "This is not a tomb. This feels more like a memory hall." As they moved further in, one of the glowing orbs drifted toward them. It stopped a few meters away and began to spin faster. Then, without warning, it projected an image into the air. They all froze. The image was clear and sharp, like looking through a window into another world. It showed tall beings, the same as the statues, walking through a bright city that floated above clouds. Towers of glass and metal reached high into the sky. Bridges connected platforms that hung in the air without support. The scene shifted. The beings worked with large machines that shaped mountains and redirected rivers. They moved with calm purpose, their eyes glowing faintly. Myra felt as if she was watching the past of this place unfold in front of her. She could almost hear the distant voices of those people, speaking in a language she could not understand but somehow felt connected to. Then, the image changed again. The beautiful cities were now in chaos. Smoke rose into the air. The beings were running, their calm movements replaced by fear. Above them, dark shapes moved across the sky, blocking out the light. The final image froze on one figure holding a glowing sphere, standing before a doorway that looked almost exactly like the one they had just walked through. The projection faded. The orb returned to its slow, drifting motion as if nothing had happened. No one spoke for several moments. The air in the chamber felt heavier now, filled with unspoken questions. Lena broke the silence. "If this is real, these people had technology beyond anything we can imagine, and something destroyed it." Mira nodded slowly. "And they wanted someone to see it." They continued exploring the chamber. Along the walls were more orbs, each showing different moments of the same civilization. Some showed them traveling through space in massive ships shaped like wings. Others showed gatherings in great halls filled with light. But always, the final moments of each memory showed the same thing: the fall of their cities and the dark shapes in the sky. Omar pointed toward the far end of the chamber. There, a raised platform stood with a small console at its center. It was the only thing in the chamber that looked like it could still be used. Mira climbed the steps to the platform. The console was covered in symbols, some glowing faintly. She placed her hand near one of the lights. At once, the console came to life. Lines of text appeared in the ancient language. She pulled out her small scanner and began trying to translate. The words formed slowly, piece by piece. Guardian protocol active. Knowledge must survive. Her heart beat faster as she read the next line. The message spoke of a cycle. Civilizations rise. Civilizations fall. Every few thousand years, a great wave sweeps through the stars, destroying worlds. The reason was not explained, only that it had happened many times before. The chamber was not just a memorial. It was a vault, a place to protect the history and wisdom of many worlds, so that one day someone could use it to break the cycle. Daniel joined her on the platform. "What does it say?" Myra read the words slowly to him. His face grew serious. "If they are right, we could be next." She nodded. The thought was heavy, but there was also something else in her mind. Why was this vault still active after so long? And why had the door recognized her touches if hearing her thoughts? The console shifted to a new screen. It displayed a single symbol, the open hand from the carvings above. Then lines of smaller symbols formed around it, slowly translating into words. "Key not present." "Awaiting bearer." Myra stared at the words. The others gathered around her, reading over her shoulder. Daniel asked the question everyone was thinking. "Do you think it means a person could open more of this place?" Only someone specific. Myra looked around at the vast chamber, the silent statues, and the drifting orbs. She felt the same strange connection as before, deep in her chest. "I think it means they were waiting for someone. And maybe that someone is human." The hum in the chamber grew louder, as if agreeing with her. The orbs began to drift in new patterns, their glow pulsing in time with the sound. Somewhere deep below, machinery stirred again, echoing up through the floor. Myra stepped back from the console. Whatever had been asleep here was waking up, piece by piece. And it seemed to know they were here for a reason, but the reason was still a mystery. The chamber's light grew warmer, almost like a sunrise. The statues seemed taller, their stone faces calm and watchful. The hum became a steady rhythm, a heartbeat deep within the earth. Myra took a slow breath. "We need to keep going," she said. "This is only the first layer. There is more here, and I think it will change everything we know about where we came from." No one disagreed. They all felt it, the sense that they were standing in the middle of a story that began long before humanity was born. And somewhere in the shadows of the ruins, that story was ready to tell its next chapter. The warm light in the chamber began to fade into a softer glow. The hum settled into a low, steady tone, like the slow breathing of something that had just woken up. Myra stood in front of the console, still reading the translated words. The others waited quietly, their eyes moving between the symbols and her face. More lines appeared on the console, forming slowly as if being written by an unseen hand. Myra's scanner worked hard to translate. The words came in short fragments at first, then more clearly. "The wave comes. The cycle turns. Prepare or fall as we fell." Myra read them aloud. The sound of her voice in the wide chamber felt small, almost fragile. Omar's brow tightened. "The wave, they make it sound like some living thing." Daniel shook his head. "Or maybe it is something worse. Something that is not alive, but still destroys everything." Lena stepped closer to the console, pointing at the symbols surrounding the main text. "They look like coordinates," she said. "Maybe locations in space." Myra touched one of the glowing coordinates. Instantly, the air above the console shimmered. A three-dimensional map of the stars appeared, floating in midair. The sight made them all take a step back. Dozens of points of light marked systems and worlds, some glowing brightly, others dimmed to a dull red. A line of text scrolled slowly. Beneath the map, recorded worlds before the wave. Marked in red, lost worlds. Myra's eyes scanned the map until she found one small blue point. Her breath caught. It was their world, Earth. It was glowing softly, marked but not yet red. She turned to the others. "We are on this list." Daniel leaned closer to the map. "And if we are here, then they knew about humans. Maybe they even knew we would come here one day." The console shifted again, showing a new message. "This vault is the first. Others exist. Find them. Together they hold the key to ending the cycle." The words felt heavy with meaning. The vault was not alone. Somewhere across the stars, there were more chambers like this one, each holding a piece of the answer. The map slowly faded, replaced with a smaller panel of text. The scanner translated it with difficulty. Final safeguard active. Access to complete. Knowledge requires key-bearer. Myra stared at the words. The open hand symbol appeared again. It seemed to follow her now, glowing gently as if waiting for her to act. Omar crossed his arms. So let me get this straight. We are standing in a place built by an ancient people who left a warning that something comes every few thousand years to destroy worlds. And they made sure only a certain person could unlock everything. Daniel added quietly. And that person might be Mira. Mira said nothing. She could not deny the strange way the vault seemed to respond to her. The door had opened for her. The map had appeared at her touch. The open hand symbol almost felt personal, like it was reaching back toward her. Lena broke the silence. If they were telling the truth, then we have a choice. We take this knowledge and start preparing. Or we leave it here and hope the wave never comes. Daniel frowned. But if we share this with the world, people might fight over it. This kind of technology could be dangerous. Omar agreed. Some nations would want to keep it for themselves. Others would try to destroy it so no one else could have it. Myra listened to them argue, her eyes still on the console. The ancient builders had faced the wave and failed. Now they were offering humanity the chance to succeed. But the message was clear. They could not do it alone. She placed her hand on the console again. A new image formed in the air. It was a series of pictures showing different vaults. Some were hidden beneath mountains. Others rested under oceans. One floated in the middle of a desert, much like the one above them now. Text appeared beneath the images. Each vault contains part of the whole. Find all before the wave arrives. The last line was almost too faint to read, but the scanner caught it. Time is shorter than you believe. The words sent a chill through Myra. She looked at the others. They are telling us we do not have much time. Daniel stepped closer to her. How short is short? Weeks, months, years? Myra shook her head. I don't know. But I think we will know when it is too late. The chamber felt different now. The stillness carried weight. Every sound, the hum, the faint shifting of the orbs above, felt sharper, more urgent. Lena began sketching the vault shown in the image. We cannot possibly visit all of these with our current resources, she said. We would need ships, funding, support. Omar sighed. And first, we need proof that the world will believe. Daniel looked at Myra. What do you think we should do? Myra hesitated. She could still feel the warmth of the console through her hand. Every part of her wanted to keep going, to find the other vaults, to see what was hidden in them. But she also knew the danger. Once this knowledge was out, there would be no controlling where it went. She finally spoke. We take what we can now. Enough to convince others. Enough to make them understand. The console's light shifted as if it understood her choice. A small compartment opened at its base, revealing a thin disk no larger than her palm. It glowed faintly and felt light as air when she picked it up. The scanner identified it immediately as a data core, capable of storing more information than any human device could hold. Myra tucked it safely into a padded case. The hum in the chamber softened again, as though the vault was settling back into rest. But before they could turn away, the console displayed one final message. The wave does not wait. Myra stared at it for a long moment. She knew then that whatever this wave was, it was already moving toward them. They left the chamber in silence, each step back through the long hallway heavy with thought. The glowing images of the fallen cities stayed in their minds. Above them, the desert waited, still and quiet, hiding the truth just below the surface. But now they carried a piece of that truth with them. and the choice of what to do next was already pulling them in different directions. The climb back to the surface felt longer than before. Mira could feel the weight of the data core in her bag, as if it were heavier than stone. Above them, the rope swayed in the faint wind that drifted down from the opening. Daniel climbed ahead, pulling himself up with strong, quick movements. Omar followed with steady patience, carrying most of the heavier equipment. Lena stayed close to Myra, glancing back now and then as if to make sure the glowing disc was still safe. When they stepped back into the sunlight, the desert stretched around them, wide and silent. The heat was stronger now, and a layer of fine dust blew over the ruins. It was hard to believe that such a vast secret lay just beneath their feet. The team moved to the shade of their tents. Daniel poured water into a tin cup and handed it to Myra. She drank slowly, her eyes still fixed on the dark opening in the floor. Daniel finally broke the silence. "We need to talk about what we are going to do." Omar nodded. "We have two paths. One, we take this to the authorities. Two, we keep it quiet until we know more." Lena sat down and pulled out her notebook. "If we take it to the wrong people, they might lock it away or use it for themselves. If we keep it secret too long, the warning could come too late." Myra placed the cup aside and opened the padded case, just enough to see the faint glow of the data core. "This is more than just proof. This is the key to finding the other vaults. Without it, no one could even start to prepare for the wave." Daniel leaned forward, his voice low. "And that is the problem. If everyone knows we have this, some will want to take it. Some will fight over it. You have seen what happens when powerful things fall into the wrong hands." Omar agreed. "History is full of people fighting for control of resources, technology, and knowledge. This could cause more harm before it helps." Lena tapped her pencil against her notebook. "But if we hide it, we might be no better than the ones who keep secrets to protect themselves. The vault said time is shorter than we think. What if the wave comes before we are ready?" Myra listened to them all, her thoughts turning over again and again. She understood Daniel's caution, Omar's worry, and Lena's urgency. Each one made sense, but they pulled in different directions. As the sun began to drop lower, the air shifted. A faint vibration moved through the ground beneath them. The sound was low at first, almost like a distant drum. Mira stood quickly and looked toward the ruin. The hum from below had returned, deeper and stronger than before. Daniel frowned. "It feels like the vault knows we are still here." They hurried back to the opening. The glowing lines along the tunnel walls had grown brighter, and faint blue light shimmered inside. The warm wind from the depths carried a faint metallic scent again. Lena stepped closer to the edge. "Maybe it is trying to tell us something." Omar shook his head. "Or maybe it is warning us to leave." Myra felt a pull to tongue. She wanted to go back down, to stand once more in the chamber and place her hand on the console. But she also felt that the vault was not meant to stay open forever. A new sound echoed up from below. A slow, heavy movement, like stone sliding against stone. It was the sound of doors closing. Daniel's eyes widened. "It is sealing itself." Without thinking, Myra grabbed the rope and began climbing down again. Daniel cursed under his breath and followed. The others came right after. The tunnel felt warmer now, and the hum vibrated through their chests. When they reached the great hallway, they saw the massive door was halfway closed. The glowing line down its center was dimming. The orbs in the chamber beyond drifted more quickly, as if stirred by an unseen wind. Myra stepped forward and pressed her hand to the door. For a moment, it stopped moving, and the hum shifted to a softer tone. The open hand symbol appeared faintly on the surface. A single message formed in the air above her. "Time to departure approaching. Decision required." Daniel looked at her sharply. Decision about what? Myra glanced at him. I think it is asking if we want to take everything it has to offer. Omar shook his head. That could mean bringing something out we do not understand. It could be dangerous. Lena stepped closer. Or it could mean taking the knowledge we need to stop. The glowing message changed. All knowledge transfer requires bearer agreement. Consequences permanent. Myra's heartbeat quickened. She felt the weight of the choice settle heavily on her shoulders. If she agreed, there would be no turning back. She would carry whatever this vault gave her, for better or worse. Daniel's voice was tense. Think about this, Mira. Once you take it, the world will change. And we cannot control how. She took a step back, looking at the half-closed door, the statues beyond, and the drifting orbs. The ancient people had built this place not just to remember their world, but to warn others. They had failed. Humanity still had a chance. The hum grew louder again, as if urging her to decide. Finally, Mira spoke. If we walk away now, the vault might close forever. If we take what it offers, we at least have a chance. She stepped forward, pressing her palm firmly against the open hand symbol. A chamber flared with bright light. The hum rose into a deep, steady tone. Symbols and images rushed across the surface of the door faster than our scanner could follow. The orbs in the chamber began to circle in wide arcs, their colors shifting and blending. Mira felt warmth flood into her hand, then up her arm, and into her chest. It was not painful, but it was overwhelming. Like holding the sun inside her. The door slowed its closing, then paused entirely. A small compartment opened at the base of the frame, revealing a new object, a thin capsule made of a material she did not recognize. She took it, feeling the faint vibration within. The console's final message appeared in the air. Bearer. Chosen. Vault entering rest until called again. The door began to close once more. Myra stepped back, holding the capsule close. The bright light faded. The hum softened into silence. When they finally reached the surface again, the sun had dipped low, painting the desert in deep gold. The opening below was now covered by a thin layer of shifting sand. In a few days, it would be hidden completely. Daniel looked at Myra. So now you have both the data core and whatever that is. Myra nodded slowly. And now the real work begins. The desert air had grown heavier since they left the ruins. Clouds of pale dust moved across the horizon, twisting in strange shapes. The wind carried a sharp, dry bite. Mira walked ahead with the capsule in one hand and the data core secured inside her bag. Each step felt slower, as if the weight she carried was not just in her arms, but in her thoughts. Daniel kept his eyes on the horizon. A storm is coming, and not a small one. We need to reach the ridge before nightfall. Omar adjusted the straps of his pack. That is at least 4 hours away, if the wind does not slow us down. Lena shaded her eyes and looked at the sky. The clouds were not normal. They rolled and curved like great waves frozen in the air. Lightning flashed far away, but instead of white or yellow, the bolts had a faint blue color. Myra knew that storms like this could be dangerous. The ancient chambers. Warning echoed in her mind. A wave of destruction would come, not from water, but from the sky and the ground. This might be a smaller sign of that larger disaster. As they walked, the wind grew stronger. Sand whipped against their faces and hissed across their clothes. Daniel led them to a low rock formation that offered some shelter. They crouched behind it, their packs pressed to the ground to stop them from blowing away. We cannot stay here long, Daniel said, raising his voice over the wind. But we need to plan our next move. Lena opened her notebook, though the pages flapped wildly. We have 2 urgent problems. First, getting to safety. Second, deciding who we can trust with what we found. Omar frowned. Trust will be hard. Once people know about the vault, they will want control. Myra looked down at the capsule in her hand. It felt warm despite the cold wind. Since taking it, she had been seeing faint images in her mind. Star maps, strange patterns, flashes of cities she did not know. They came and went too quickly to understand. When she blinked, she saw a new image, a vast wall of dust moving toward them. It was much closer than she had thought. "We need to move now," she said sharply. "The storm will be here in minutes." They grabbed their packs and ran toward the ridge. The wind pushed against them, almost knocking them off their feet. The air became so thick with sand that they could only see a few steps ahead. Daniel shouted, "This way. I know a dry stream bed that might lead to a cave." They stumbled down into the shallow channel, the sand swirling around them like smoke. Omar helped Lena when she tripped, pulling her up before the wind could bury her in drifting sand. Mira kept one hand over the capsule, shielding it from the grid. Finally, they reached a narrow crack in the rock. Daniel squeezed inside first, then pulled the others in after him. The space was dark but wide enough for them to sit together. The sound of the storm outside was like the roar of 1,000 drums. They lit a small lamp, casting a warm circle of light on the stone walls. The air inside was cooler and still. Mira sat with her back against the wall, breathing hard. Omar took a deep drink from his water flask and passed it around. "That was too close." Daniel looked at Mira. "You saw it coming." "Before we did." How Myra hesitated. "I think the vault gave me something. Not just the capsule, but visions, warnings." Lena's eyes widened. "Then maybe it chose you for a reason." Daniel's expression was unreadable. "Or maybe it is controlling you without you knowing." Omar glanced at him. "That is not fair. She saved us just now." Daniel leaned forward. "I am not saying she means harm. I am saying we have no idea what the vault's true purpose is. It could be guiding her, or it could be using her." The lamp flickered as the wind outside shifted. The sound of the storm grew deeper, as if the air itself was shaking. Mira's heart pounded. She knew Daniel's caution came from his training, but his words still felt like a shadow between them. Lena broke the silence. "The bigger question is what happens when this storm ends." "Where do we go next?" Mira thought for a moment. "We go to the coast." The vault's map showed another site there. If the wave is real, that site might hold the next piece of the warning. Omar nodded slowly. "That is far. We will need supplies and a way to travel fast." Daniel rubbed his jaw. "And people we can trust to guard what we have found." The storm outside raged for hours. They took turns resting, the sound of the wind filling the silence between short conversations. Myra could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, the visions returned. The same star map, the same flashes of cities, and now something new. A line of tall towers stood in the water, half submerged. Waves struck them again and again until they fell. When she opened her eyes, the sound of the storm was quieter. The first light of dawn filtered into the cave. They stepped outside carefully. The desert had changed. Sand dunes had shifted, covering old paths and revealing new stone. The entrance to the ruin was completely buried now, hidden under a fresh hill of sand. Lena looked at the horizon. The air was clear again, but the strange blue lightning still flickered far away. Omar adjusted his pack. "We move before the heat." Returns. As they started walking, Mira felt the capsule warm in her hand again. A new image appeared in her mind, a point on the coast, glowing bright. The vault's voice, though faint, seemed to whisper a single thought. "Go there before the sky changes." She looked at the others. "We do not have much time." Daniel glanced back at her, his face hard but his voice calm. "Then we move fast. No stops. Unless we must." They walked on, the desert stretching wide before them, the secrets of the vault still pressing between them like a silent weight. The path ahead was dangerous, but Mira knew they could not turn back now. The journey to the coast took days. The desert slowly gave way to dry hills, then to wide plains where small rivers cut through the land. The group moved quickly, avoiding large towns and sleeping in hidden spots at night. The air grew cooler each day, and the smell of salt began to rise on the wind. Myra kept her eyes on the horizon. Each night, the capsule gave her more visions: a shoreline with dark cliffs, a cave hidden by rocks, and a strange mark carved into the stone. She knew this was their goal, but she also saw shadows moving there in the visions, shapes of people who were not part of her group. On the morning of the 6th day, they reached the top of a ridge. Below them stretched the sea, gray under the cloudy sky. Waves rolled toward a long stretch of beach. In the distance, the cliffs rose high and sharp, just as Mira had seen. Omar pointed toward a narrow inlet between the cliffs. That must be it. The currents there are strong, but it is the perfect place to hide something. Daniel scanned the beach with his binoculars. His face tightened. We are not alone. They all crouched low. Down near the water, 3 tents stood in a small camp. A thin column of smoke rose from a fire. Several people moved between the tents and the shore, some carrying equipment, others looking out to sea. Lena whispered, "They are here for the same reason we are." Daniel lowered the binoculars, and they look prepared. "Those are survey tools and scanners." Omar frowned. "If they are searching, they might already be close to finding the site." Myra felt the capsule warm in her hand. The visions had been warnings. If these strangers found the cave first, the vault's secrets could be lost or used in ways they could not control. "We go around," Myra said quietly. "We cannot risk a direct path." Daniel agreed. "We will move through the rocks along the side of the cliff. That should keep us out of sight." They climbed down from the ridge and began moving across uneven ground, staying behind boulders and patches of tall grass. The sound of the waves helped hide their movements, but each time they paused, Mira could hear faint voices from the camp. It took hours to reach the far side of the cliffs. From there, they could see the inlet up close. The water surged into a narrow gap between 2 tall rock walls. At the base of one wall, half hidden by seaweed, was the mark Myra had seen in her visions, a spiral shape carved deep into the stone. Lena touched the mark. "This is it." Omar looked at the water. "The tide is high. We will need to wait until it is lower to get inside." Daniel kept watch toward the camp. "They will see us if we stay here too long." Myra closed her eyes and let the warmth of the capsule guide her. In her mind, she saw the cave's entrance open wider as the water pulled back. She saw a narrow tunnel leading to a dry chamber filled with carvings. But she also saw flashes of movement. The other group entering from another side. "They have another way in," she said quickly. "If we wait too long, they will get there first." Daniel thought for a moment. "Then we go now. The water will be dangerous, but we cannot lose this chance." They tied their packs high and stepped into the cold surf. The waves struck hard, but they moved carefully, clinging to the rock walls when the water rose too fast. When the tide pulled back, they hurried forward. The opening of the cave was just as Mira had seen. They slipped inside, water swirling around their legs. The air was damp, and the sound of the sea echoed behind them. The tunnel rose slightly, leading them to a wide, dry space lit by cracks in the ceiling. Strange symbols covered the walls, spirals, and shapes of tall towers. In the center of the chamber stood a stone platform, and on it rested a sealed metal box. Omar stepped forward, his voice low. "This is older than anything I have ever seen." Mira approached the box. The capsule in her hand glowed faintly, and the lock on the box clicked open. Inside was another core, similar to the one they had taken from the desert vault. But this one was darker, almost black. Lena whispered, Two pieces of the same message. Daniel turned sharply towards the tunnel. Footsteps. They backed into the shadows, just as two figures entered the chamber from a narrow side passage. One was a tall man with a heavy coat, the other a woman with a scanning device. The man stepped to the platform and smiled. "So, it is real." I told him we would find it. The woman scanned the core. It matches the first one we heard about. If we bring it back, they will have everything they need. Myra's heart pounded. The strangers were here for the same cores, but their talk made it clear they were working for someone else. Someone already aware of the desert vault. Daniel gestured for the group to stay silent. They waited until the strangers began packing their equipment, then slipped quietly back into the water tunnel. The cold waves hit them again, but they moved fast, driven by the knowledge that their time was running out. When they reached the open shore, they kept to the rocks and moved away from the camp. The wind was rising, and dark clouds gathered over the sea. Omar finally spoke. "They are hunting the same thing we are, and they already knew about the first sight. That means we have a leak, or they have a better network." Daniel looked at Mira. "And now they will follow us." Mira held the black core tightly. "Then we cannot stop." The vault showed me one more place, far to the north. It is the last key. Lena glanced at the growing storm over the water. "Then we leave tonight. No rest, no stops." They all agreed. As the first drops of rain began to fall, they turned their backs on the sea and started the long walk north, the sound of waves fading behind them and the shadow of pursuit growing with every step.